Welcome back, everyone, to the Ultimate Homeschool Community Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Hernandez. Today, we have a founder and leader of the Noema microschool. It's Elisa. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I'm so glad we could connect on Facebook. I've met so many great founders, leaders, homeschool people on Facebook. So this is a great way to connect with other like-minded individuals. Now, we spoke briefly about what you do, but if you can share with our listeners a little bit about your microschool, how you got started, what your sole focus is, your vision, all those things, I'm sure they're itching to hear.
Yeah, so I was a public school educator for over 11 years. Um, and the burnout was real. It was real. And I really just wanted to teach in the way I knew worked, in a way I knew would impact students. And I just felt like where I was in the traditional classroom I couldn't do it. I had,
Right.
40 kids in one of my classes. Like I just couldn't
Wow.
do it. So I really started researching micro schools, started researching what that might look like in my community, which is Goodyear, Arizona. Um, and I really wanted to focus on a fun and personalized learning experience for secondary students, so middle and high school students, because that's where I was teaching. And so that's kind of my wheelhouse. Um, so as I was, learning and researching more, I just started reaching out to families and seeing like if this is something they wanted to do. And the funny thing is that um I kind of was looking at it through students that wanted to leave the traditional school system rather than students that were already homeschooled. And what I found is, as I've started since August, I have a good mixture of both. I have a good
That's amazing.
mixture of students that were previously homeschooled that want that simulation piece, and then I have those who came from the traditional school that are looking for a new way to do school. So yeah, I started, like I said, in August of this year. Um, I didn't sign my contract for this coming school year, obviously. And I think around February or March of this year is when I really started pushing, to get families and get students. And by like mid-June ish, I was pretty much
Right.
fully enrolled. So, yeah, it's been amazing. It's been a really fun journey for sure.
That's amazing. So, when you're saying you have middle and high school students, um, what what is really like, do you have them separated in different classrooms in different groups? What's your micro school setup like? Are you in a facility?
Uh,
Are you in your
uh,
home?
We are in my home. We are in my living room. There's 14 completely enrolled. I have,
Wow, that's a lot.
um, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, but they're not always there at the same time. So I have a
Right,
lot
of
of
course.
part-time and then I have only a couple full-time. So I have some that just come Tuesdays, Thursdays. I have some that just come Wednesdays, Fridays. And then I just have about five that are full-time. They come Tuesdays through Fridays. I'm off on
Okay.
Mondays. Um, so yeah, it's really nice. We're all in the same little living room and they all work on their own personalized curriculum that I've worked on with their parents. So me and the parents talk about what they want to do, their interests, how they learn, what's the best way to learn, and then we pick a curriculum based off that. So they all have some sort of personalized plan. With English, since that's where I come from, and I was an English teacher, I do a lot of kind of my own stuff for that. But I most of the other stuff, so like math, science, history, um, we work together on what they do. So during our day, we have four academic blocks and then like an enrichment block at the end, which is kind of like an own your own thing. And so each of the academic blocks, they have a specific amount of time to get through a lesson of their curriculum, and I just act as kind of like a little busy bee floating between all of the students. Some of them are working on something at the same time, like similar things at the same time, so they can kind of group
Right.
together and talk together. Um, And even if they're not working on the same thing, I've naturally found that they are all very helpful with each other and, they're willing
That's
to
good.
ask questions of each other and not just me.
Right.
Even like the junior high to high school kids are like they're really easy to get along with. They get along very well with each other. And so it's been really cool to see the middle school and high school dynamic. So yeah, I don't have them to answer your question very long.
That's
Yeah, I
okay.
don't have them separated. It's just all in one room. I do have so it's like my big living room and then my dining room, and that's all kind of connected. So I do have a little bit of a two group situation, but yeah, no, they mesh very well together is what I've noticed. So yeah,
So
it's been great.
I'm glad to hear you say that they are not separated. That's actually like a Montessori approach. I don't know if you've heard about
Oh
Montessori,
yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
it starts in the foundational years, but it can
Sure.
go all
Oh
throughout
yeah.
secondary. And a lot of times, parents are focused on the little ones doing all of the specific Montessori foundational materials, but those
Yeah.
principles absolutely can be utilized in secondary education. And here you're showing what the
Yeah.
importance and significance of it is. And like you've got research to back the
Oh yeah.
fact that it's
Oh
absolutely
yeah.
it's absolutely beneficial for all the students involved to have a multi-age group
Oh yeah.
classroom.
Yes. 100%. And, I wouldn't, like, ever necessarily not that I wouldn't not call myself Montessori, but, like, I've never, like, put my label on there or that
Yeah, of
label on
course
there
not.
because you're right, it is very parents see Montessori and they're like, "So, like, preschool?
Toddlers?
Like, what do you mean?"
Yes.
Yeah, toddlers, right. But I will say,
Yes.
yeah, I've done a lot of research because there is a bunch of adolescent Montessori principles that I apply. So,
Yes.
obviously they're not getting, like, wooden toys, but you know what I mean?
Of
Like, so it's
course.
like a very much
Of
little,
course.
like, learn through discovery and play. And they do a lot of that in here. So, our like our big science, a lot of our science curriculum is learn through discovery, where it's like rather than sitting and reading a textbook, there is some of that because you have to, but it's not all just getting lessons, it's discovery. It's where can we find the information that will help us learn this. So yeah, I do try to incorporate a lot of those Montessori principles
Uh,
because I mean it's just research based, like it just works. So
exactly. Well, and a lot of
yeah,
times it ends up becoming almost second nature. Like you as a teacher
yeah,
want them to be
yeah,
intrinsically motivated. So it kind of goes
yes,
hand in hand. And like you're saying, most
exactly.
parents are thinking Montessori is for toddlers, but really the initial phase of the foundations are more tactical. There's more hands-on items. But as you gain more
Hmm.
knowledge, it becomes more
Right.
abstract. And like for
Yes.
parents to understand that it keeps going. You don't just end that. You're showing
Correct.
how it's
Yeah.
working in more of that abstract
Yes.
and conceptual area of the
Right.
Montessori philosophy, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it looks
Um,
different as you get older, but yeah, it's
yes,
still the same philosophy. The
right.
foundations are still there. It's just looking different because they're older
Exactly.
versus their foundational years. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Exactly. So, can you tell me a little bit? I know you were saying you've got individualized curriculum. How do you choose that curriculum if parents,
Yeah.
are also maybe looking at this like as an option for something that they could maybe do in their own home?
Yeah.
Where are you getting homeschool curriculum? Are you getting public school curriculum, secular, Christian? Tell us all
I
about
mean,
it.
I have a yes, I run the gamut of it. I look through all my sources. I was with a group called KaiPod, the Catalyst group. I don't know if you've heard of them. But
Yes,
they
I
help
have friends
microschool
from there.
founders. So they helped me find a lot of different
Good.
like a plethora of curriculum. So that was really helpful. Um, I basically just like gave them a menu of options and like here are
Okay.
the ones that I vetted that I liked. Um, and if you find something different, like there's a lot of my homeschool families that are like, we have the good and the beautiful, and we like that, and so we're gonna keep that, and that's great. So I just like kind of I work with them and I see what we're doing. Even some of my homeschool families, we've had to like switch already just because,
Mm,
that's just the nature of it. We switch up what's not working and we replace it with something that does. It's just that was kind of my biggest struggle with was curriculum. And you would think as a teacher, you'd be like, don't you know? I worked at a school where I was not given curriculum. They were like,
Oh,
here are a bunch of standards, figure it out. Like, and so yeah, I never worked with curriculum. I never had like a planned scripted curriculum. So to be like, "Ooh, what do I do?" It was really tough.
I bet.
With English, with their ELA stuff, it's been a lot easier because I'm like, I'll find something for them. I'll create something for them. It's no big deal because I've always done it. But I have had to rely heavily on like the math and the science curriculums, just because that's not my strongest suit. And I found some great ones, a lot of like work at your own pace ones.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of the homeschool curriculums I found work better for our situation.
Yeah.
Um, Unlocked Math has been one of my favorite ones.
What is unlocked
To
math?
unlock math, yeah, it's
Okay.
it's a work at your own pace kind of things. But I've also
I
found
haven't
that a
heard of
lot of
that.
the public school curriculum, yeah, it's pretty good. A lot of the public school curriculums like IXL also
Yeah.
work very well. So,
Okay.
so it's like, but they both have their pros and cons just depending on the kid. So, the curriculum is
Right.
probably it wasn't my hardest like thing to hurdle over, but it was something that I was like, ooh, I don't know if I know how to do this correctly, but it's been good so far. So, yeah.
Well, that's good. I think you brought up a good point though. A lot of times parents are leery to homeschool their upper grade level students
Mhm.
because of the fact that they don't maybe remember everything from high school, or maybe it was above, they really just skated
Sure.
by, and yet they still want to give their child the best education for the child versus just sticking them in a system that's broken. So,
Yes,
mentioning the fact that, like, hey, I don't fully grasp all of this, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a successful student. That doesn't mean we can't have a successful school or a successful group. And
exactly.
especially since they end up discussing, you might have students that are excelling at math, and,
Yeah,
they can help the other students in areas that maybe you might not have the best ability,
for
but that's
sure.
okay. That's all the part of learning,
Right.
and helping them to teach others instills it for
Yeah,
them to learn it even more. The other
for
thing I
sure.
noticed, that I wanted to mention was about your homeschool curriculum versus public school curriculum. I know there's a lot
Yeah.
of naysayers for curriculum at all. We've got a lot of unschoolers
Good.
that are like, no, no,
Yeah,
no curriculum. I think
yeah,
curriculum has its place, just like you were saying.
for sure.
And it's
Yeah.
funny you mentioned a lot of the homeschool curriculum is better for some of these scenarios. Can you maybe say a little bit more about why you have noticed that in this setting that you have?
Yeah. Well, with like just to your point about like the unschooling and like, we're not doing curriculum. I think that's okay for a bit.
Yeah.
I will say that like I think like some, especially those who are coming from a really toxic public school situation, which there are tons out there.
Mhm.
I was in one, so it's like, yeah, I get it as a
Yeah.
teacher. There is some of that, like you have to detox. Like there's a little
Yeah.
bit of like, let's just discover, let's just, do what we have to do. But I do think there will come a time, especially in that high school area and
Yes.
junior high area, that you do need something a little more
Structured.
structured.
I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, but I don't want to say anything bad about those who are doing a little more unschooled approach. That's totally, I think that that works, especially for those who are coming from a situation. Anyway, going back to what you were saying, I think the homeschool curriculum versus the public school curriculum, I think there needs to be a healthy mixture and a healthy amount of like researching them. A lot of the homeschool curriculum I found is really great, really like personalized. It's really like work at your own pace, which makes sense for a homeschool student because that's what they're doing, right? But there are a lot of very good supplemental public school curriculums where it
Okay.
might not be like the whole thing. Like it might not be like your whole curriculum. Maybe you don't use all of it, but there are so many good things in that curriculum. I was shown what was it called now? It was for math, illustrative math. And that is a public school curriculum and it is so good. It's again, it's a little bit more supplemental, but I've had students use it for their entire math um curriculum. So I think it's great. It's like hands-on, it's illustrative. So it's like a little more hands-on, like a little more like drawings and a little more things like where you can see the math happening. So I've found it to be a really good, if
Right.
not full curriculum, at least a resource. So yeah, so those who are homeschooling, I wouldn't say shying away from public school curriculum is the way to go. I think check it out. If somebody mentions one, check it out. IXL is usually a very good resource as well, that supplemental resource.
I've
Um,
heard a lot of good
even for
things about
EO,
it.
yeah, I've used No Red Ink. And that's great for grammar. It's kind of like gamified. And so if your student is
Okay.
someone who likes to compete and do things like that, it is a good resource for that as well. So IXL is always a good resource that comes from public school curriculum as well. So those are my suggestions.
No, that's great. Well, and so you've got some that are, they're very religious and or they want like, from a Christian
Mm,
worldview, which I understand. However, math is math. So you
math
can
is
kind
math.
of just like, pick the best item. I think we have to think about the
Yeah.
student more than what we as the parents think they
Yes.
need and see what they
Yes.
gravitate towards. If they're learning with the
Yes.
illustrative math, then stick with it. If they like the
Yes.
gamified grammar, then stick with it.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
doing what the student
Yeah.
needs in that present time. And it might just be for a season. Like you said, you had some that were switching curriculum. In those
Sure.
instances, switching
Yeah.
curriculum is not a problem. Like we need to think
Not at
about
all.
how the student is growing and transitioning and how
Yes.
their needs are changing and how to meet them where they're at currently.
100%.
So
And
with
I
that
do
being
say, I
said,
will say, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, no, we'll finish that and then I'll move on.
Okay. I was just gonna say that my full timers who aren't there every day, all 4 days, or who are there all 4 days, sorry, they don't look at the curriculum every day. Um,
Right,
they might look at it 3 days out of the week, and then like Fridays we do like a fun real life math situation where they're not even looking at their math curriculum. They're like doing a
right,
scenario that I've set up. Or like even with science, we're starting like a big group project, and so they're not going to be looking at their science curriculum as
right.
much. So, it's one of those things where um I think about those homeschool parents, and I would really encourage them, and I'm sure they know this because they've been doing it, but I would really encourage them, don't rely on doing that every single day because your student's probably going to want to do something else that's related to science, and just be open to
Absolutely.
that. Um,
Yeah.
and so that's what I kind of base my whole model on. It's like we have this curriculum, sure, but I'm gonna put my little sparkle on it all. So
Well, right. I
so that
mean,
they
and giving them the ability to break out of the norm because you came
right.
from sitting at a desk 8 hours a day just
Yes.
pushing through all the information just to get the information done,
Right.
and it's like there's no relation
Right.
to the real world, there's no relation to how am I actually going to use this. And I hear that more times than not, like, oh, I don't remember anything because I don't use it in my everyday life. From
Exactly.
adults, parents, it's like,
Exactly.
well, then what was the point of learning it if you're not going
Why
to,
were you there for 8 hours for
yeah,
13 years? Right.
yeah. It
Exactly.
was a babysitting service. Let's just put it right where its
Correct.
places.
Let's
It
just
was
be what
free
it is. Yeah.
babysitting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
There were times as even a public school teacher where I felt like they just need a warm body in this room. Like that's what they need, an adult in this room. And that's what I am. Like I feel like they don't care about
yeah.
my students. They don't care about what they're learning. They're just like, you're a grown up. Be in this room. Cool, thanks.
Yes. Yes, you're a bona fide babysitter. Which
Correct.
is not what you probably set out to do. You're like, I want to be
No.
a teacher. I want to make a difference. I want to teach these next generations. I want them to grow
Yeah.
up and be leaders in
Yes.
community, good
Yeah.
citizens, all these things, right? So
100%.
now that you've got just a handful, because obviously one person cannot change the world of school. We have all these little pods, we have all these little micro learning schools, and it's
Yeah.
really creating an ecosystem. So I think it's the National Microschool Institute has stated that microschools are really just creating a learning ecosystem. So the ecosystem that you have
Sure.
built is focused on, the older secondary students, but also bringing in a little bit of mix of everything. How have the
Yeah.
students responded? Do you have like some comments or some something that you can share from the student's perspective of school, being
Oh my
outside of
gosh.
the public school and in a house?
Yeah. I have been overwhelmed with the reaction to what, because they're high schoolers or junior hires. They
Right?
don't
They
hold
don't,
back.
yeah,
As much as we like, they don't, yeah, they're gonna tell you what they're gonna how they're feeling and what they're feeling. And I love that about them. Um, and they have been so honest about how they've been feeling, and it's been so great. Like, I have a student that's like, I was sick a couple weeks ago, and so I had to cancel just for the day. And I had a student that was like on Google Classroom where they can message me and like, Miss Hernandez, are we having school tomorrow? I really miss it. Like, please, like, have school tomorrow because I don't want to, stay home. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so sweet. And then I have students that say, I've never learned as much in my, 10 years of going to
of
school than
school.
I have in this 3 months that I
Right.
like, that's actually kind of crazy. That's crazy
Right.
to think about. And of course,
Oh,
it
yeah.
might have been hyperbolic, like how students are, but even
Yes.
if it is hyperbole or an exaggeration, like, that's still huge. Because
That's a
that shows me
huge,
not only are they learning here, but they feel like they've missed out on their other years. You know what I
right.
mean? So even if it's not exactly true, there is some truth to that, where they feel like they're now in a state of learning where at first they were not.
Yeah.
Um, 'Cause even if it isn't more than they've ever learned, it's definitely a state of learning, because that's how you feel when you're in a state of learning versus when you're not. And I
Yes.
feel like that's where my students, they finally feel like they're in a state of learning. And of course, those who are homeschooled probably, even though those who come from homeschool feel like they've been learning, not that they haven't before, because I'm sure they have, but they feel that socialization piece where they get to discuss what's going on in their curriculum with others, and they get to discuss and have these open communication with others. And some don't get like super into our discussions, but our group discussions, we have weekly debates. Those have been amazing. We have like we're reading a novel together. We have book discussions together. All of that has been some of my favorite things because they get
Absolutely.
to not only share, but then they get to hear their peers say things from their point of view and their perspective. And so they get to see all these different perspectives, and they also get to see what they have in common. And I've loved that about my micro school because I have students from all different walks of life. I have those who come from, a Christian worldview, and then I have those who do not, that come from a little bit different, more diverse backgrounds. And so that has been one of my favorite things, is that they get to see all these different worldviews and cultures come together and discuss and talk. And so, yeah, of course, we're learning math and science and history and all that. But when we get together and have those group discussions, those have been my favorite parts. And my students get to see and hear from their peers in a respectful, kind environment. Because, sometimes in public schools, I've seen it where you try to have a discussion and with the
Right.
class and it gets
Out of hand.
heated, volatile. Yeah. And then that tunes the kids out. They're like, well, I don't want to do it anymore. This is too much. I don't like this anymore.
Yep.
So what they do is they tune out completely of the class. And here we don't have that. There's none of that. They are completely invested because it's respectful, it's kind, and we've set that foundation of, community.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, kids have just really responded so well. They love school. They love coming. Every once in a while, of course, they're teenagers, so I get pushback, like, do we have to do math today? Well, I mean, it is school. Like, yeah, you have to do math today. So, but I mean, they're still respectful of it. And at the end of the day, they know that this is why they're here. They're here because they want to learn, and they chose to be here. So there is that intrinsic motivation because they chose to come here. And of course, maybe their parents are like, no, you have to come. But I'm sure most of the parents I know would be like, if you don't want to do this anymore, you don't have to do this anymore. So that's been the coolest thing, is that they're choosing to come to my school every day or every other day. So it's been
That's
great.
amazing. I think that's really
Yeah.
important and crucial that you're talking about these discussions because that is priceless. Letting those children,
Yeah.
because they're still children, but they're starting to become adults, they're starting to be
Oh
on
yeah.
their own. They still need to think critically and work out
Mhm.
those thoughts and process other people
Yep.
and communicate. We have so much of a communication dysfunction now because we have social media, we
Oh,
have screens, we have all these things. And
oh yeah.
I read an article on Forbes about the fact that just this last year, bosses or, employers were firing more of the recently graduated incoming
Yeah.
workforce because they can't
Yeah.
communicate, they can't handle the workload,
Yeah.
they don't want to do
Right.
what they've been asked. They can't manage
Yeah.
their time. Like they are lacking so severely in all these areas that they're not even capable of being a functioning employee. So
Right.
for high
Exactly.
schoolers to be able to share their ideas and hear another worldview,
Yes.
but still
Yes.
be able to debate their ideas,
Knowledge.
it's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
Um, we've lost so
Huge.
much of that. And I'm so glad you are
Yes.
able to bring it
Yeah.
back. We need more micro schools. I keep telling people
It's
this.
been, we do.
Yeah,
Do.
I
We need more micro schools because especially in the junior high, high school range, I feel like
yes,
there's a lot for
youngers.
elementary, preschool, and I think there needs to be there too. But we're missing that piece. We're missing that junior high, high school
They
piece
drop
because just
off.
like you said, kids are leaving the public school and they're graduating public school and high school and they can't stay hired. They can't because they have no skills. They have knowledge. They know what the quadratic formula is, right? Which is great, right? But they have no
Right.
skills. They have no analytical skills. They have no critical thinking skills. And so,
Hmm.
especially like you were just saying with the world that we live in now, I feel like we need that ability to know what we believe, but also be able to understand and respect other
Others.
people's beliefs
Absolutely.
because that's missing in grown-ups. So it's like
Yeah.
if we can train the next generation to be respectful and listen to what other people have to say, I think that's going to make huge leaps and bounds. And I only have 14 of the kids, so it's like y'all have to be doing something else with these kids. I only have 14 of them. We need more because we'd have more kids going, you know. So I mean I can say with confidence that my 14 kids, they're gonna be good.
Right.
I can
Yeah.
confidently say that.
If we can get some
You're right. You're exactly
handfuls,
right. We need more.
all we
Yes,
need is a couple
please.
handfuls.
We need a couple handfuls. That's it. So yeah,
So
you're exactly right.
I know we're getting ready to get closed off here, but can you share a little bit? I know
Okay.
your parents, they pay for this service, and I know sometimes a lot of times, homeschoolers maybe don't have the ability to pay, but there are homeschoolers and there are people that are willing to pay for these services so they can keep
Yeah.
working while their child is still getting
Yeah.
homeschooled, even though it's in a
Right.
group setting, it is still considered homeschooled. Do you take ESA vouchers
For
or do
sure.
you not? I know there's a lot of controversy
We
right
do.
now with all the vouchers.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I do take ESA. As a former public school teacher, there was a lot of weird feelings about ESA for a long time,
Yeah.
because of what we were told about ESA taking money from public schools.
Yes.
But I've done my research on that. I know that people say, "Oh, I've done my research," and they haven't, but I promise you, there's a lot of, and I'm
For
not gonna
Arizona,
sit here and pretend that
anyways.
I know how it for Arizona,
Right.
yes. And
Yeah.
I'm not
Because
gonna
it's
sit here and
different.
tell you that I know how a state budget works or, how to allocate funds, for sure. But I will say with confidence that ESA has helped so many families get what they need. I have a student, and I know we're running out of time, but I have to share this. I have a student, who um, got sick, really, really sick, I think when she was like 14 or 15. And she could not be in school and she lost like a lot of what she learned. And so she just couldn't be in school anymore. And so now she's in my school. She's 20 years old. Okay. So, but because of this disease that she contracted, she's still doing like double digit math, double digit addition, because that's how much of a learning loss she had in those years.
Wow.
Um, I look at her story and she wants to learn. She wants to go to school. She wants to know more. And I look at her story and I'm like, she would not be able to go to a public school. here in Arizona. Because not only would they not give her any accommodations that she actually needs, I mean, they might, but I mean, I've seen it firsthand. There are like it's hard to accommodate for all the students you need to
Right.
accommodate to. And so I just look at her story and I'm like, ESA has helped her.
Good.
Like there is no question in my mind that ESA has helped her get the things that she needed to get. And then I look at, all my students, and all my students would
Hmm.
most of them would not have been able to get a micro school without ESA, and most of them
Right.
would be stuck in some sort of situation with a public school, or stuck switching schools every year, or switching around, or switching
Right.
teachers, or switching around and that's not healthy for students either. So,
No,
I can just say with confidence, and I know this isn't what you asked me, but I just want to make
that's
sure
okay.
that I know that ESA so ESA has helped every single one of my students. And even if they did have the means to do it, I think that ESA is important because now parents have the freedom, to choose, extracurriculars, or, if they want to do a sport, it can be for that as well. And I just think that it's just so helpful. So yeah, that's my
Well,
little
that's
spiel on
good. No, you're good.
ESA.
It's okay. We
Yeah.
are working on an
Okay.
ESA here in Tennessee, and I can tell you that the homeschoolers are not happy about it because of how
Oh,
they're trying to make it a part of homeschooling, which it is not because of the public
no.
benefactor of it. And so
I,
it's really messing up all of the legalities of everything. And there's a lot of homeschoolers that are really upset about the ESA vouchers
I see.
because that would mean that we could not, then the government is impeding into our
I,
right to choose. So that's just, it's still on the
I see.
table. Yeah.
I
But
didn't
it's,
realize.
yeah.
Didn't
In
realize that
each
it was hated
state,
from all sides. I'm just kidding.
yeah, it's unfortunate
Yeah.
that we can't just have it as its own thing and let
Yeah,
homeschooling be homeschooling and like separate the two. But nonetheless, it
I
definitely
see.
can be a
I
help,
know, I
you
understand.
know? Yeah.
Yeah,
So, how can
yeah.
people find you if they're in the Arizona area? I know you
I
probably
mean,
full.
I am. I do have a
Yeah.
wait list, but I am
Okay.
um Noema Learning, Noema learning.com. You can also find Noema Learning, all one word, at Instagram, or on Instagram, and also on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm very responding there. I also have a TikTok, but only the kids like that one, so.
I know, right?
But yeah, so that's where you can find me, message me, send me any, if you're looking, maybe even if you're planning for next year, you can look at that. I'm hoping to kind of restructure my plan for next year because I'm very seriously considering, I didn't mention this, I have two boys of my own, but they're young. I have a second grader and then a pre-K student. So I am considering maybe, and they're still in public school, so I'm considering maybe not doing that. And then having to kind of restructure. No, I'm a little still going, still gonna do full time. No, I'm a learning.
Right.
I'm just gonna restructure what I'm doing a little bit. But yeah,
Absolutely.
so reach out if you're looking for some next year.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Elisa. I really appreciate your time and
Of
your,
course.
background, your
Yeah.
understanding of everything. We really have had a great conversation. We will
Yeah.
see you all next time. Happy homeschooling, everyone.